nobody is showing you what is happening inside Iran right now. The cameras are outside, the missiles are visible, the people living through it are not. For 25 days, 90 million Iranians have had no access to the global internet. The government cut it on day one. Most people inside Iran cannot get their voices out. NPR managed to receive text messages from some of them. One woman, a 49-year-old fashion designer in Tehran, wrote, "There are armed teenage boys in my alley. I do not leave the house." The streets of Tehran are largely deserted. What moves through them are Basij militia checkpoints, Iran's paramilitary force now deployed at schools, hospitals, and residential streets. Before the war even started, Iran's inflation was officially around 70%. Food prices had already more than doubled. One of Iran's largest banks collapsed in December 2025. The Iranian rial had been losing value for years. When the war began, what was already a crisis became a collapse. People who had savings watched them become worth almost nothing. Small business owners who posted Instagram stories in solidarity with protesters had their business pages suspended by authorities. Some had their assets confiscated by the judiciary. A young woman who sold jewelry online told Al Jazeera, "This is not just humiliating. It is forcing businesses to close and inflation to grow. There is not even a word about when internet returns." Over 6,600 civilian buildings have been damaged by U.S. and Israeli strikes. That includes 5,500 residential units, 65 schools, 14 medical centers, and 13 Red Crescent facilities. At least 15% of all casualties are under 18 years old. The strikes are being recorded as sporadic because the communications blackout makes it almost impossible to count the dead. One Iranian man who had just left the country for Turkey showed NPR oil stains on his jacket. He said they came from flaming oil droplets that fell when Israel struck Iranian oil depots in March. His 26-year-old cousin died in the strikes. That cousin had protested against the government just weeks earlier. He wanted the regime gone. He did not expect to die before it fell. That is the impossible position most Iranians are in. Many despise the regime. Many want it gone, but they are now being bombed by the countries claiming to be helping them do exactly that. One woman told NPR on March 16th, "We, the Iranian people, have lived with this regime for half a century. We know how ridiculous their claim to be peaceful was. But these are also our buildings." Nowruz, the Persian New Year, one of the most important celebrations in Iranian culture, was banned this year. Security forces prohibited public gatherings. Families celebrated behind closed doors. Iran has also been learning to identify aircraft by sound. Iranians in Tehran describe knowing the difference between the roar of a fighter jet and a missile. They have become experts by necessity. Today, Trump paused the deadline for energy infrastructure strikes until April 6th. Iran rejected the U.S. peace proposal and offered a counter. Talks are happening that both sides are publicly denying, but inside Iran none of that matters yet. What matters is whether the food arrives, whether the power stays on, whether the armed teenager at the end of the alley lets you pass. The world is watching the missiles. Almost nobody is watching the 90 million people living underneath them. This is what that looks like, and it is happening right now.